participants. So, uh, a very happy new year to everyone. And while more participants are joining, it's just amazing to see all of you again after a big break, after about almost 6 months. And there will be opportunities in this year that we hope that we can see all of you in person also. We just hope the next webinar series, like so starting today, we have 5 more webinars coming up for all of you. So these kind of elaborate on the topics that we discussed during the national TOT. So we hope that it's a great learning for all of you and even us, and hope to see you soon. That's it, Hannah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us. So, once again, a very good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all doing well today, and I'm very excited here with Restart. As you all know, we had a national TOT on psychosocial support for emergencies, and we're doing this as a follow-up to further capacitate you all in psychosocial support for different demographics. And first session, we are doing it for the children. When we talk about crisis and emergencies, we often focus on the immediate physical challenges, but it's very important that we learn how to handle the psychosocial and emotional impact, and especially here on children. And today we do have a very experienced speaker who have immense experience in the field. So before starting into the session, I would like to put up a few poll questions. This is like a small assessment that we're doing prior to the training. So I hope you all can see a poll in front of your screen. You can just read the question and click on the answer that you think is right. Can everybody see that? See the poll? If there is any difficulty in accessing, just let me know. So we have like 6 responses out of 12 participants. Can everyone try and yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for participating. That the answer, as most of you mentioned, was all of the above. So then quickly move on to the second. Okay, yeah. So I'll just share the results here. I hope you can see the second question. I request everybody to just go through the question so I can read it out. So which element do you believe are essential in providing effective psychosocial support tailored for children in crisis situation? So we have creating safe child-friendly spaces and incorporating play and creative activities into intervention, involving caregivers and parents in support program, all of the above and none of the above. I can see 7 of the participants have responded. Okay, 8. I request everybody to do it. Just click on the answer which you think is right. We have 15 participants now. I request everyone to just click on the option which you think is right. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So, as you can see here, to the right answer was all of the above. And we'll quickly go to our last question. So, whichever you think is the right answer here, kindly mark that. Also, feel free to raise your hands, or you can unmute if you have to raise any questions. Sure, I think that's it. So I'll end the poll here. All right. So thank you all for participating in that assessment. So without any delay, I would like to introduce our trainer for today. As you all might know, from the flyers and all, we have Ms. Jyoti Ravichandran here, who is an experienced speaker, and she has dedicated her career to the mental health and well-being of children. And she's currently serving as the mental health specialist at UNICEF. And so basically, she's a psychologist with over a decade of experience working with children, adolescents, and influential adults in their lives in clinical, community, and school settings. She founded Thrive Foundation in 2016 to address systemic cognitive, socio-economical, emotional, and academic health in under-resourced schools in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. She led her first EdTech mandate of social and emotional SEL programming and teacher well-being in India through lead schools. She holds a postgraduate degree in psychology, clinical from Christ University, Bangalore, and she's also a Young India Fellow 2016 and an Acumen Fellow for 2017. So without further ado, I would like to give a warm welcome to Jyoti Ravichandran ma'am. We are really looking forward to hearing your insights on the importance of psychosocial support for children during emergencies. And I should also appreciate her and thank her because today, unfortunately, the technology wasn't in our favor. So we have a little bit issue. So we'll be I'll be sharing the screen while she'll try connect with us in her phone. So I hope everybody would bear with that. And yeah, so hopefully, ma'am, Jyoti ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Hannah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yes, yes, we
perfect.
can hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. Um, this is what we are looking at is really very critical, right? So we have a lot of emergencies which we've been seeing in the last 10 years, and many of them are so recurrent. And now there is a lot of attention on how we have to do better when we respond to the needs of children. Everyone is watching us, everyone is watching all the adults and how we are responding to various crises, from wars to famines to cyclones to floods to earthquakes, and how we are taking care of our children. So, hi, Ida. I'm so sorry. I'm not able to turn on my video because I've got very little battery on my phone, and I'm in an extended power cut today. Maybe Hannah, we can get started with the presentation. And as Hannah is starting the presentation, I would like all of you to put in the chat box when you hear the word mental health, what kind of words, images, or phrases come to your mind? when you hear mental health? What kind of words, phrases come to mind? You can also feel free to unmute and share since, it's a small group. Subbalakshmi says confusion. Okay. Any other words? Well-being and peace. Okay. Colleagues, there are no right or wrong answers. So whatever is the association that you're making with mental health, just feel free to put in distress. Okay. Distortion. Okay. Anything else? Can we hear from some men in the group too? Depression, all right. What other words? What other images, what other ideas come to mind when you hear mental health? We have a second confusion, okay? All right. So if I can, colleagues, feel free to keep putting in words, but I'll be moving on from here. Subbalakshmi and Dwarka, if you wouldn't mind, can you unmute and speak about why confusion? So please remember again, there are no right or wrong answers. It's very important for us to have this dialogue. So whatever your ideas and thoughts are, very, very welcome to share, please.
Hello.
Yeah, good
Hello,
evening.
I'm Dwarika.
Yes, Dwarka, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Whenever I hear about mental health, I think little bit confusion. What will happen? Type. So there is some confusion.
Right. Okay.
Can I? Yeah.
Go
Can I
ahead, please.
speak in Hindi?
बिल्कुल, absolutely.
जी. तो थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजन होता है, इस तरह ये लगता है कि शायद वो एक एग्रेसिव सा होता होगा, या
हाँ,
कोई
हाँ, हाँ.
बंदा ऐसा है जो अ, मतलब थोड़ा एग्रेसिव है, या ज्यादा वो उसमें बोलते हैं, तो उस तरह का कुछ एक दिमाग में आता है.
अच्छा, अच्छा, अच्छा. ठीक है. All right, great.
जी.
Thank you, Dwarka. Subbalakshmi, would
थैंक
you
यू.
like to add
Ah,
to what Dwarka sir said?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, confusion means unable to take proper decision and
I
unable
see.
to concentrate on any work what I am doing at that
Right.
time.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. So just to summarize to the group, Subbalakshmi means cognitive impact of well-being. So sometimes we're not able to concentrate, sometimes we're not able to take the right decisions. So when there is a lot of confusion in our life and what to do next, that is the association she's making with mental health. And Dwarka sir is talking about confusion in terms of, when you see somebody who's very aggressive, then what is going on with them? So there is confusion in terms of how do we think about mental health. Um, Someone said distortion. Can you explain that a little bit, Ankita?
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Yeah.
Because in this picture we see there is
Hmm.
a lots of color.
Ah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 color is showing a white color, and
yeah.
the rest two is the orange. Rest one is yellow, one is
Hmm.
green, one is
Hmm.
blue, sky blue. Then
Hmm.
sudden we are seeing one is dark blue, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the magenta color.
Yeah.
तो these all colors are creating the environment. जैसे कि सपोज डेट कि बहुत सारी चीजें उसके माइंड में है, और
हाँ.
जो एक सिमिलर चीज है, और सारी चीजों का जो शेप एंड साइज है ना, वो एक ही
हाँ.
है, वो
हाँ.
अलग नहीं है. जब
हाँ.
बहुत सारी डिफरेंट चीजें चलती हैं तो हम बोल सकते हैं कि अलग अलग चीजें माइंड में आ गई, लेकिन
Hmm.
पिक्चर्स ये दिखा रहा है कि सबका शेप एंड साइज सेम है,
Hmm.
एंगल सेम है, वो पैटर्न सेम है, राइट, बट कलर चेंज है. यानी एक ही चीज जो है कॉमन चीज जो कई चीजों में बट चुका है, तो वो डिस्ट्रैक्ट हो चुका है। तो इस वजह से मैंने डिस्टॉर्शन वर्ड बोला, क्योंकि साइकोलॉजिकल वर्ड है, कि उसकी जो, मान लीजिए सपोज दैट अगर किसी के माइंड में कुछ कॉग्निटिव थिंकिंग चल रही है, ठीक है, वो एक सिमिलर प्लेटफॉर्म का थॉट है जो कई सारे प्लेटफॉर्म में डिवाइडेड हो चुका है। तो इस वजह से आई सिलेक्टेड द वर्ड ऑफ डिस्टॉर्शन।
All right, fantastic, great, thank you. It's a very creative response. Thank you, Ankita.
Thank you.
So, anybody else would like to add anything in the chat? Any response to what you've heard colleagues speak about? So maybe we can go on to the next slide, Hannah. So by mental health, what we really mean is mental health is positive. It's positive. Where there is health, health is always positive. It is a state of well-being that enables people to cope with stress of life, realize their abilities, learn well, work well, contribute to community. That's what we mean by mental health, right? When we talk about distortion or depression or distress, it is a lack of mental health, which can be for a short term, like when we have some sort of stress, when we have some sort of challenge that is just happening in life, then it is a very short term lack of health, which can happen when you get a cold or influenza or, something, or a sprain or something, just like physical health. Sometimes we lose our physical health if you have a fall or if you have a nutritional imbalance or the weather changes and, so on and so forth. Similarly, mental health is actually a very positive state of well being where cognitively we are able to think clearly, we are able to be very realistic in our expectations of what will happen in life, when we are able to have positive, grateful thoughts in life. So that is cognitive. Emotionally, mental health is when we have really positive feelings, no matter what is happening, however negative things may be happening, we have a lot of patience, we are able to solve problems. So emotionally, cognitively, we are being very adaptive. We are able to take care of various things that are happening. Socially, we have positive relationships, strong relationships. And even if, it is a group of people that we don't get along with, we can be really polite and, just work with them, because in our jobs, we have to work with very many different kinds of people who are at different levels of, government or community or wherever. And the ability to work with a diverse group of people, that talks to social well-being, right? When you enjoy a lot of well-being in your social sphere, you have very strong relationships, no matter how diverse people are. So this is what we really mean by mental well-being, right? Cognitive, social, and emotional. So can we go on to the next one? Okay, actually, can you go back to the previous one? So here, colleagues, I just want to kind of come back to does this definition of mental health resonate? Because I'm going to put something in the chat also. So, like we said, mental health is actually well-being, right? It's a positive word, mental health. But then sometimes when there are problems, there is mental distress or discomfort, right? Which can be for a very short term. When something has happened or you had a fight with a friend or fight with a family member, so then you feel a little bit of distress and you find it hard to sleep. But then this is for a few days, and then when things get better, you also get better and everything falls back into routine. Then there are mental health conditions, right? Or mental illnesses. So health is one side of the spectrum, illness is the other side of the spectrum. Yeah, so Dwarika ji, when you were talking about, aggression, aggressiveness. So when there is a lot of aggressiveness happening in someone and you see that, are kuch bhi ho raha hai, they are taking care of it in the same way. सबके ऊपर गुस्सा आ जाता है, सब situations में गुस्सा आ जाता है, right? Then there might be a problem there. right? So then that is the other opposite end of mental health, which is, the person might be going through some sort of mental health condition or illness, right? Can we go on to the
Yes,
next?
ma'am.
Yeah, great. Can we go to the next one? Okay, here is another question for all of you who work with children, right? What have you noticed in a relief camp or a community where disaster has struck, like it could be a flood, and because of that, you might have seen many families migrate or being displaced to a relief camp? What do you see children there doing? Can we have as many responses as possible? Whatever you've seen children doing, what are they doing there?
मैम ऐसे बोल सकते हैं।
हाँ बिल्कुल।
एक्चुअली जब इस तरह की सिचुएशन होती है तो बहुत सारे बच्चे जो छोटे छोटे होते हैं या तो डरे हुए होते हैं, कुछ बच्चे
हम्म
अलग से वहाँ पे कैंप में है तो वो खेल रहे हैं, उनके पास अगर अपॉर्चुनिटी है उस तरह
हम्म
की तो वो खेलने में थोड़ा सा बिजी रहते हैं। लेकिन
हम्म
ज्यादातर बच्चे थोड़ा सा डरे और सहमे वो दिखते हैं वहाँ पे।
हम्म
और उनके पास बहुत सारी चीजों की दिक्कतें होती हैं। और कभी कभी
हम्म
लोग वहाँ पे आते हैं, कुछ चीजें उनको देते हैं, कुछ वो ज्यादातर लोगों के फोकस में बच्चे नहीं रहते हैं।
हम्म।
कुछ लोग
What?
देते भी हैं बच्चों को जो उस तरह से सेंसिटिव लोग होते हैं। तो इस
हम्म
तरह का कुछ बच्चे बहुत सारा डरे हुए रहते हैं और कुछ थोड़ा सा ऐसा फ्री रहते हैं, उनको ज्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ता है। तो दोनों तरह की सिचुएशन, अगर हम जब वहां पे जाते हैं आपदा के बाद, जब कोई इस तरह की सिचुएशन होती है तो दोनों तरह की चीजें दिखती हैं वहाँ
Okay, thank you.
पे। जी।
Fetching water, right? Anything else? What else are children doing?
Depending on the age of the child, if the
Mm,
children are not able to understand the crisis
mm,
or what exactly is happening,
mm,
then a place like whatever what you have shown in the pic will definitely be like a camp, socializing area,
mm,
mixing, getting a lot of company of other
mhm,
people they have never found earlier before, could be due to their own lifestyle or even
mm,
locality. But
mhm,
this would be one of the best place where the children, depending on the age group again,
mm,
may have really fun and enjoyment because they do not understand what is the aftermath and what is crisis. Relief camps must have been provided with, if not sufficient, a little better, one step higher than what they could be getting at their
mm.
home places before the crisis, with respect to food and facilities. So it all depends on the age group, I could say.
Excellent. So, definitely one thing to notice is the age group. And as you rightly said, because often we say that, children are very resilient. They are. It's very important to understand why are they so resilient. It's because sometimes they don't understand. They don't understand what has happened. Then, when the family brings them to a camp, as you said, they're very excited by all the other children they are there. The parents are not working when they are in a relief camp, so everybody's around. So it is just a very different experience for young kids. And somebody said very sensitively that if they have been separated from their family, right, they get scared. They are even more confused. They won't be able to kind of eat or sleep peacefully because it's so hard for them to again find adults who they can trust very easily. So, when separated from family, those children are particularly at high risk and they really need psychosocial support, mostly to find out and be reintegrated with their families. Right? So, this is a very high risk situation where, when displacements are happening, children will get separated from families, and that is not a good thing for anybody. Right? Subbalakshmi has said it will take time for them to understand what has happened. They will see everyone who comes with a lot of curiosity and they will go around to see their schoolmates, right? That's a very childlike thing to do. Sometimes you just don't understand what's happening, so you're just having a great deal of fun. Can we go to the next one? So, as we just discussed, children have the ability to cope with resilience. But when there are too many risk factors, especially at time of emergencies, you will find that everyone's temper is going very high, right? Because there's not enough food or your house has been ruined. Adults' tempers can be really bad because adults themselves are scared. And in our culture, sometimes we can't just sit down and say that I feel really scared because adults are not supposed to feel fear, right? So then that leads to temper, aggression, it leads to abuse, it leads to a lot of violence, which are all ways of coping badly, right? Abusing someone that has lesser power than you, treating somebody with lack of respect, right? Lack of sufficient food and nutrition, wash facilities, security. These are all the risk factors, right? So they can go on to suffer from mental distress if children are not supported with these very critical psychosocial supports at the time of emergencies. But what is really important here to notice is adults who are engaging in abuse or violence, they are themselves, or substance abuse, too much alcohol, you know that these adults are also having difficulty coping with the demands of life. So they also need psychosocial support, because when adults are coping badly, the children and their families are also going to suffer. There is a lot of research that says, and this will also be very understandable to all of you, right? That you all work with children and their families. So you can tell that when the mental health of family members or adults or caregivers is affected, it directly has a impact on children's mental health, right? So as much when we talk about mental health of children and psychosocial support for children, we must always provide for psychosocial support of the adults in the families also, right? So at a time like this is the importance of giving psychosocial support to children at the time of emergencies. Can we move on to the next one? So here is we just spoke about some risk factors, right? When children are displaced from their own homes and go into relief camps or places that they're not very familiar with, there is a lot of abuse, violence. Every day, school activities, etc., are getting disrupted. So that is also a risk factor. Um, Lack of bodily safety, right? So many adults and children can sometimes be in one camp together. There's not a lot of privacy for women and children. There might be, more opportunities to be abused by strangers. And when, families and, parents are going through a difficult mental health time themselves at a time of emergency, then the way that they can respond to the children, that is also impacted. So there are so many risk factors at the time of emergencies. The opposite of risk factors are naturally protective factors, right? So what are the protective factors that can really take care of the mental health of children is, number one, always sense of belonging, right? We know that even if it's in a strange place, you feel like, oh, there are so many children here, and like, look at all my schoolmates, today we don't have to go to school and now we can go and play. And when you feel like that, there is the sense of belonging, no matter how strange the place is. Sense of belonging comes from the quality of relationships, not really from the place you are in, right? Because oftentimes, even in a classroom, some children may not feel like they belong there, but they go to the same classroom, same school, year after year after year. But so, which is why it is important to understand that sense of belonging comes from the people that you're surrounded by. How warm are they? How respectful are they? How inclusive are they? How much, freedom do you feel in their company? How do you feel like you can make, mistakes with a teacher and she won't hit you or she won't scold you? So the freedom to make mistakes and to learn from your mistakes, all of these things contribute to a sense of belonging. How can we engender a sense of belonging in relief camps? That is something that is for all of us to really think about. Second is intellectual stimulation. Somebody said when we were discussing what do you notice children doing in relief camps depends on what they have available, right? But then children will play no matter whether something is there or not. They'll either play with somebody else or they'll play with, the kind of trash or, whatever there is available somewhere, because that is the natural tendency of child to find whatever and then start to play. But that's often not enough, right? Because with the same thing, we all get bored watching the same video, for example. So children need intellectual stimulation, toys, crayons, whatever, or like even games in a group. When you have nothing else to do, when you don't have materials, but you can always have music, you can always have movement based games, right? These are the things that can, kind of make them feel like they are engaging with something. Otherwise, boredom is really not a good thing. When boredom sets in, then, children tend to manage boredom by getting into very high risk behaviors. They might want to try risky things. They may want to, they may fall into bad company, etc. So then we really have to make sure, also because their everyday education, that routine has been disrupted. We need to make sure where children are, there is a lot of intellectual stimulation. Then physical stimulation, of course. Lots of playing, lots of movement, even if it's fetching water, right? It's necessary that, everybody needs water, but then, make a game out of it. Keep physically active, so that it's also really good for mental health, right? Then personal attachments or relationships. The fact that when an emergency happens, I don't feel like my mom is not closer to me. Something happened during the flood, so my mother is not available to talk to me. She's very busy doing her own thing. Or my sister is really busy, or my father is never available. Children can't feel like that. They need to feel like, particularly at an emergency, my family came closer together. Because of the emergency, me and my neighbors became closer. We helped each other out more, right? I was able to work with my classmates even if we didn't have school. My teachers came and they supported us because the schools were shut, right? So the fact that during emergencies, what can we do so children's relationships with each other and with important adults become even stronger? So when we are doing, the 1, 2, and 3, we are at the 4th with personal attachments, but sense of belonging, intellectual stimulation, physical stimulation, can we keep including the important adults into these kinds of activities so the children are not only laughing and playing with one another, but also with other adults, right? So the number of people that we feel very connected to keeps increasing, right? Then the 5th thing is to feel valued, that no matter what happens, I am a very important person to my friends, to my family, and everyone takes care of me, right? No child can feel like I don't matter. Nobody's giving me food, so I don't matter. They give me whatever is left over, so I don't matter. You would have seen all of this in camps very frequently. So then what can we do to make sure these things do not happen? And then relationship with peers, which again we've discussed throughout, because peers are the number one, relationships, particularly with adolescents, but also with younger children who are seeking to, kind of do independent things and move slightly away from, being a mama's boy or a papa's boy, and, kind of learning to do things on their own. For them also, friendships are really important. Are there any questions here at this point for psychosocial support and the things that we've looked at so far? If you have any experiences here with providing some of these, you can feel free to share so we can all learn from one another. In your experience of providing psychosocial support, which have you found very easy to provide? Which have you found very difficult to provide? Is it easier to provide physical stimulation to children? Or is it very hard to kind of, make them feel valued? So in these things, I mean, this is not only theoretical. So it'll be good if you can share what you find easy to do, what you find hard to do. You know what teachers do when nobody is responding? They'll call out names. So I can also do that. I can look at the participants list and just randomly call out names. But it'll be good if we can, kind of look at this list of psychosocial supports that we can give to children. And from your own experience, what has been easy to provide? What has been easy to provide? What has been difficult to provide?
So to start with, I feel like the physical stimulation, because I haven't personally worked, but I've seen kids playing it. Like football is a very common thing that I've seen
In
in
camp. Right.
camp.
Right.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
then it doesn't involve every students. But then
Yeah.
I have seen some, mostly boys.
Yeah. So there is a challenge, right? So you see that football is oftentimes something that is often played in camps, but then it involves people who've already played football before. And so anyone that feels like they don't know, they find it hard to join. But then when physical stimulation like football is happening, you're also intellectually stimulated because you want to win and you're kind of, overcoming various obstacles to kick the ball through. Your relationship with peers is increasing. You feel valued because you're active and you're playing. And you have a sense of belonging with the team. You have personal attachments with like some new friends you might make. So, sports, as you can see, is so interconnected with everything else. So, that can be a great intervention. And so, to make sure that, I mean, as Hannah said, some children may not be included, especially children with disabilities, for example. They can't just jump out of their wheelchairs, or, if they have wheelchairs or any other kind of disability, vision impairment, they may not be able to, run around and play with other kids like that. So, then what are some things that we can do for children with various disabilities so they are also physically stimulated, they also feel intellectual stimulation, they also enjoy relationship with peers and make new friendships, and they feel valued, right? That also becomes really important. Can we go on to the next one? All right, I think we will share this with you so you can definitely kind of read through this. The next one. Right. So one of the ways, one of the methods or techniques or whatever else you want to call it, to provide psychosocial support is psychological first aid. Can we have a brief show of hands? How many of you have heard of psychological first aid or have been trained on it already? Just if you can raise your hands or, kind of put it on the chat, it'll be very helpful. Who has been already trained on psychological first aid or have heard of it? Oh, great. Stelvi has. All right. So we can look at what psychological first aid means. It can be really very important. And we will also look at, what it is not. So you can practice it with some level of, comfort and confidence. And it can really help children and their families out. Can go on to the next one, Hannah? Next one. Yeah, great. So psychological first aid is a humane, supportive response to a fellow human being who's suffering and who may need support. So this is there was a consortium of World Health Organization, War Trauma Foundation, and World Vision International. And these are based on the Sphere Handbook and the Interagency Standing Committee on mental health and psychosocial support. So very many people have come together to develop this and to also study the effectiveness of psychological first aid in supporting children. So we know that this is a very reliable technique and a reliable method. And there are, trainings that go on for 2 days or up to a week on psychological first aid. So you can go as deep into it as you like. But right now, I'm only giving you an overview of it so that, when you next get opportunities on learning psychological first aid or attending some trainings on it, you would be more familiar with what it is. Can we move on to the next one? So, because we've said that it is a responsive, it's a humanitarian response to a fellow human being who's suffering, it does not mean that you need to be a psychologist to provide psychological first aid. It is from one human being to another human being who's suffering. So that way, it is not a professional requirement that one has to be a psychologist. In fact, anybody who works with children, adults, or communities that are dealing with difficulties during emergency, any human being will be able to practice psychological first aid, right? What does it involve? It involves giving practical care, no advice, only practical care. So if somebody is hurt, getting them physical health care supports. If somebody is too scared or distressed, giving them company, giving them making connections to referrals. So any support which does not intrude. We don't force someone to do something. We don't force them that this is good for you, you must do it. But then we offer them care and support that really supports them through a difficult time. It involves, very importantly, assessing needs and concerns. What does this person or this family need right now? Is it food, shelter, clothing, warmth, socks, shoes? Is it medical care? Is it vaccinations? What do they need right now? What are their concerns? Are they afraid that somebody is going to hurt them? Are they afraid that there are, unsafe elements inside the camp that they feel very nervous to take a shower around or use the bathroom around, right? These are things that you would all have heard before. So, assessing needs and concerns which are immediate. Then helping people access basic needs such as food and water, medicines, right? Comforting people and helping them to feel calm. So, if somebody is really distressed, some of you mentioned in the chat previously also that some kids are just so scared. They look scared. They might sit alone. They may not, no matter how much you try to lure them with toys and games or with other children, they don't want to come and join you, right? So, it is with children, we just show up consistently every day because we are not going to make anybody change or force any change on them. But we just keep telling the child that today you don't want to play, it's okay. I'll come tomorrow. And tomorrow, if you have told a child that I'll come tomorrow, you must go tomorrow, right? Because children notice these things. And then you go tomorrow. And then if they are still not wanting to play, we don't kind of, make them feel like, but, I came all the way for you. Now you're not playing with me, right? So we don't do these kinds of things with children. We just tell them, fine, today also you don't feel like playing. Maybe tomorrow you might feel like playing. I'll come tomorrow, right? So it is, how do we really want to support these children over and over again by showing up consistently, because they also need to develop trust in you, right? Next is helping people connect to information, services, and social supports. Information is very, very necessary for children also. When COVID-19 started, across all of our schools, all we did for the first 2 weeks of classes, this was a mental health, what we call social and emotional learning. So in these classes, we only did myth busting around COVID-19. What are the things that you've heard about COVID-19? What is the correct information? Where are we? How do you fact check? So children could use the World Health Organization's website to look at information, to support their own families who don't have access to this kind of information. So information, correct information, taking care of rumors, making sure rumors don't spread or wrong information does not spread. These things can do a lot for a person's mental health. A great deal it can do for mental health, correct information, right? And connecting them to services, connecting them to social supports. Highly, very important. So when we have a list of referrals, we not only include the district mental health programs or district health services, but also social protection schemes, anything in the gram panchayat level where families can reach out and avail of schemes that the government is giving for various vulnerabilities. These are things that can greatly help the mental health and psychosocial support of entire families, right? And the last thing, but also the most important, is protecting people from further harm. If we know that something like, for example, any caste based hierarchies, and how food is being distributed in camps. This is something that is quite common in our culture. We've seen it before, where upper caste get the food and then lower caste, they'll get whatever is, available later on. And the lower caste women or lower caste children, they get the last. So oftentimes children don't get the eggs or the bananas, etc., that they need for their nutrition every day. So making sure these kinds of things do not happen, or abuse and violence in camps do not happen. This is also a mandate of providing psychological first aid. Right? Can we move on to the next one? Right? So, what is PFA not? Psychological first aid, like we said, is not professional counseling. Right? So, it's not psychotherapy, it is not counseling, it is human to human. When one human is suffering, other humans help with information, making linkages to services, making sure they come under no further harm. That is psychological first aid. What it is not professional counseling, it is not psychotherapy, right? It is not a clinical or psychiatric intervention, although it can be part of good clinical care. It is not psychological debriefing. It is not asking someone to analyze what happened to them. It is not to put time and events in order. So we're not telling them, ye kaise hua, kab hua, right? We're not doing all of these things. All we are doing is we are seeing that somebody is in distress and we are getting them what they need immediately, whether it is food, protection, services, whatever, right? We are not pressing people to telling us their story, right? So we're not forcing them to share what happened to them. If they want to, they will. If they don't, they don't. And we don't need their stories to provide them with services. Finally, it is not asking people details about how they feel or what happened, right? Any questions here? Do we have any questions or can we move on? Okay, let's go on to the next one. So we provide psychological first aid during an emergency situation or immediately after a crisis event. It is part of capacity building in disaster preparedness in emergency prone areas. So definitely keep your ears open for when there are, psychological first aid trainings happening. You will find it extremely very useful. It is provided during or after a crisis affecting a small group of children also. Like, for example, we recently had a couple of students committing suicide in a school, and we had to provide psychological first aid for the rest of the children in the school, right? Who, because I mean, what happens when your classmates commit suicide, right? There is a lot of rumors. This happened, that happened. This person saw it, that person saw it. Children are afraid of death. They hear of all of these things. They get very distressed. So then, for a small group of children, we provide them psychological first aid when such a crisis has happened and it is so particular to their particular school or their group, right? And then we also use psychological first aid as immediate intervention with children who've been sexually or physically abused or neglected, right? So it is these kinds of traumatic events not only disaster or emergency, but then the history is that we started using PFA in emergency situations. But then we've also kind of moved it to smaller groups of children who may need linkages with services and support. Can we move on to the next one? Right, this is very important. Why do we need to provide psychological first aid for children? Because children naturally react and think differently to crises than adults. We just discussed it, how they don't understand really what is happening. They don't have the ability to think about consequences, right? So they are just very immediate. They are in the moment. They have fun with whatever is available, or they get very afraid. So they react and think very differently to adults, which is why they need additional care and support. And they have specific needs according to their ages. What a 3-year-old needs is very different from what an 8-year-old needs to what an adolescent needs. Children are also vulnerable to adverse effects due to physical sizes and social and emotional attachment to caregivers. So we just discussed how when caregivers themselves are going through a very difficult time, children may feel like, mama or papa don't love me because, this thing has happened and they are only concerned about the house, right? So they don't care about what happens to me. So then we don't want them to feel like that. So because of that particular vulnerability, we want to provide psychological first aid to children as well. Let's go on to the next one. So with psychological first aid, there are 3 main things that we do. The first thing is we look at what does this family need? Are they hurt? Are they scared? Are they facing immediate dangers right now? Right? So you look. You check for safety, security. You look for children with obvious urgent basic needs and look for children, parents, and caregivers with serious distress reactions. Like Dwarka ji also said that, some children are just always looking distressed. So you know that that child and that families, they need particular support, right? So that is look. Can we go on to the next one? With listen, we are approaching children and parents who may need support. You ask about what are their needs. You ask them, what do you need right now? Is there anything that you're afraid of right now? Do you have any, kind of concerns about this particular emergency or this relief camp? Is there something that you need? Then we also listen to children and their parents and caregivers and help them feel calm. So we're not giving them any advice. We're not giving them, if they ask you for information, then that is something that we share, right? But then we're not really forcing them to do anything. We are simply letting them vent so they can feel calm. Can we move on to the next slide? Linking is, so we've kind of first looked at what children and families need immediately and urgently. Then we've moved on to listening to them about their own concerns. And then we link them. You help children and their families to address basic needs and access services. So you will provide a lot of information in this stage. You help children and their families cope with problems, and you can jointly come up with solutions together. Connect children with social support and protection schemes. Can we go on to the next one? Most children recover well if they are reunited with their families or caregivers. They have their basic needs met. They feel safe and out of danger, and they receive support like psychological first aid. So in any of the camps, what we might need to do is audit for these things. What are the sources of danger? What are the sources of safety? Right? So then risk factors and protective factors and how we might increase these. And psychological first aid can really help you understand children's perspective and families' perspective on needs and concerns. Next one. So just very quickly, we've already looked at this, but then whoever needs extra help, are people who remain very distressed. They there are dramatic behavioral changes or personality changes, right? Some people might find it difficult to function in their daily lives. They may not be able to take care of themselves, eat on time, sleep on time, etc., where they feel constantly threatened or constantly scared by dangers. They are at risk of doing harm to themselves or to others. And this is something we might need to keep an eye out, particularly for adolescents and women, because they tend to harm themselves more frequently. If a child is severely distressed, you might consider giving them company or putting them in touch with a group of people that that you also consider to be really safe, like a nice group of people, decent group of people, because they should not be left alone, right? So I think we're at the end of our presentation now, so if there are any questions, happy to take it. Sorry, we've kind of also extended time. So what we will do, colleagues, is also send you this presentation, but also the psychological first aid modules. You can look at it and make yourselves more familiar with it. And definitely, if there are trainings that are being made available on psychological first aid, I will really encourage everyone to, take it up and be trained in this modality. It's very, very useful. All right, so I guess there are no questions. Maybe if there are questions later on, you could send us emails, etc., and we'll be happy to address them. Yes, Telvi, you can use these. We will share the PPT with you. So definitely try the 3 steps of psychological first aid. And maybe not take classes yet. If you were to trained on psychological first aid, find that you're really able to support other people in a meaningful. So I'll definitely encourage you to be trained in it first, and then you would be a wonderful trainer for other people. All right, if there's nothing else, then we can maybe close the session.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. It was wonderful hearing from you. Is there any questions quickly?
Yeah, I just want to ask one question. I'm not audible?
Sure. Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, when in the beginning of the session, when she was talking about, okay, I'm talking to her directly. When you were talking about the mental condition that is leading to distress in families, you wanted to, or you mentioned that it is not, it's a short-term illness, like short-term condition, you said. But if we really look into it, when you have a child in the family with autism, and it is not a direct disorder or disease on the person or individual self, but it is a condition where the whole family or as a secondary, the parents or the mother is highly affected, and that leads to a chronic distress, constant. There will be a lot of anxiety, depression, and it's not at one short brief period. It's developmental disorder, and hence it is chronic. So in that condition, how can you really say that it is a short duration, ma'am?
I think there was some confusion. There are 3 types. We were talking about the continuum, the mental health continuum. The first thing is mental health, which is well-being. And then there are short-term mental health conditions, right? Like distress. And then there is mental illnesses and associated chronic conditions. So what you are saying about disability that is a chronic condition.
Yes.
Right? And then when something like this happens, like there is, flooding, and then you're kind of building your house from scratch, etc., that can really lead to depression and anxiety, because it is the, kind of the difference between, somebody like, middle class families, for example, they will just lose everything in a blink
Yes.
of an eye. So then that is chronic. That is a really problematic situation. And then when you see that oftentimes with mental illnesses, like if there is a psychotic disorder, for example, like schizophrenia or something, whatever the family might have in terms of savings may all go away. Similarly with, chronic physical conditions, right? Like even physical health has a huge impact on mental health. So if somebody is chronically diabetic, you can't eat this, your entire lifestyle has to change. There is hypertension, stroke in a family. These things can wipe out mental peace, right? So that is the continuum we were talking about. In between is just transient mental distress. Like we got low marks, there is a particularly busy time at work, right? So we have too much to do, not enough time to finish it in. So these are, they don't count as mental illnesses. They're just,
Yes.
everyone has distress now and then.
Yes, of course.
It becomes important to see that if something like this happens, is somebody unable to bounce from it? Then it turns into a mental health condition or a mental illness. Right? I hope that
Yeah,
clears.
got it. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ella.
Thank you so much, Eda. Is there any other questions or confusions? If not, I think we can close the session. Thank you so much, Jyoti ma'am, for your time and for sharing your expertise. It was very beneficial. We'll also have a recording of the session. So, and also, as ma'am told, we'll be sharing the guide, the trainer manual for this with you all right after the session. So you can also go through it and let us know if you have any further doubts in that. We'll communicate it with that trainer. As of now, Michelle, would you like to come up?
Sure. Thanks, Jyoti. Thanks, Hannah, for letting me speak. So just to come briefly, thanks everyone for joining us after a long break. It's good to see everyone on call. So as I've shared in the chat, along with the webinar series, we are pleased to let you know that we are going ahead with the planning for regional trainings, and we are in the process of finalizing the dates for regional trainings in the West and Southern region. And as was shared as an expectation during the national TOT, we would love for you, some of the participants of the TOT, to lead certain sessions of the regional training. And if you're interested and have the capacity to lead these sessions, please reach out to us, and we'll ensure that we keep you in the loop in the planning and development of these trainings. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. And I also want to flag in that we have our next session, which is psychosocial support for women during an emergencies. It's happening on 19th of the same month. So I also request everybody to register for that. The link is already been given in the group. So we'll meet you all on 19th. Thank you so much for joining. And once again, I would like to thank you to our trainer today for your time and your expertise. And also thank you participants for joining. Thank you so much, everyone. See you on 19th.
Thanks, everyone. If we can help with any additional material or resources, please feel free to write to Hannah. She'll let me know, and I'm happy to send you whatever you might need in your work to support children.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Bye.